animated lower thirds for our 007. Again, this is not my artwork. I saw this artwork online. I broke down the pieces and recreated it myself. And that's really just to show students and people learning that that's how you do it. Find something that's cool and figure out how you can get to that in point two with any kind of cool artwork. So I would never claim this as my own. It's just a learning lesson, and it is a cool graphic. They did a really cool graphic with this. Now I did recreate it, so I'm not exactly like theirs, but it's close enough. Okay. So again, we have the 60 because it's their 60th year, I guess. And the 007 with the gun, and then what's cool is the gun is white when it goes through the little, dark hole of the O, or of the 0. And we got there, remember, by making an additional composition, this little guy, that we have white. Remember, we can use invert to make things black or white and vice versa. We just duplicated it, made that guy white, and put a tiny little mask, so he literally only shows right at this one spot. So we get that cool illusion. All right, we've got that one in. 007 animated logo. Perfect. We are now going to go make a new composition. You should get used to doing this by now. We're going to make a new composition, put the lower thirds in that. Make another new composition, put both the animated logo and the lower thirds in that, and animate them together, just like we've been doing. So I'm going to kind of stick with the size we've been using. That seems to work for now. Always understand your sizes and why you would use one over another. 10 seconds is fine. I can always change that, and a black background is fine for now. Now remember, when we animate these, we may need to put a black. Well, no, black will show up regardless. Never mind. Just always remember that your composition's background currently, I would assume it will change eventually, with Media Encoder. It doesn't really acknowledge it. It looks like it's acknowledging it because we have it at black and it makes it black, but really it's just saying no matter what you do with this color, it's going to be a black background. So keep that in mind if you wanted this to be a little different. All right, so back into this guy. Oh, let's rename him. And let's call him 007 lower thirds, so we know what we're working with and we can see easily when we're looking in our project files what we're dealing with. Okay. We're going to go in and we're going to say James Bond, because why not? And we're going to do some similar stuff to what we've done before. We'll go 110-ish, pretty big. We'll do bold again, because why not? And we will center him up using our align. So that's what we do. We're going to work in the center, even though we're going to move it eventually to the lower thirds. The center just helps us really utilize some of these align tools and our guides the best way possible while we're designing. Okay. Deselect all layers, because if I start to do stuff, remember that I can get a little funky with masks. So I'm deselecting everything. All right, I'm going to make a new layer. This one's going to be 60th anniversary. Does anyone else have to say it kind of like that to get all the letters in? Okay, I'm going to center. I know that's weird. I'm going to center, but then I'm going to shift down just to get them perfect, because that's how I roll. Oh, it doesn't matter. I'm going to have to do a bunch anyways. We're going to go much smaller, about half-ish, so 60th. We're going to make it regular, because typography, that would be boring. At least this is a little more interesting to look at. Center, center, down just a little bit. Perfect. Okay, that looks good. Now, select off of everything again. Don't have one layer selected when you start to do other things, because you can get weird stuff with masks. All right, I'm going to go up and grab the pen tool. I am going to draw a line from here to here using click and then hit shift, click again. So it gives me a perfectly straight line. Just like if you were in Illustrator and Photoshop, there's no stroke. It's not even going to show up. See? So let's take off the fill. You have to, unlike Photoshop, you have to, these are just slightly different. You got to make sure you actually click on the word to get the no fill, or if you like want it to be a gradient or something. And this is probably a decent time to acknowledge, where have you seen all of these things before? When do we use this guy? It's one of my favorite guys. If you know, you know. So that is there if you ever needed it for something more advanced or fun or cool. The answer was for shadow layers. We use them in Photoshop. Frankly, you can use them in Illustrator as well. And instead of making a cloudy, grayishy black transparent over something that looks like a shadow, it actually goes black and then absorbs the color behind it so that you see those colors and textures and things more clearly and there's not like a fog. So multiply anytime you're doing shadows. Okay, we're just obviously leaving him like this. Make a no. Yes, for a stroke, we want it to be white. Perfect. 2-point font. I mean, I have to look at it. Yep, 2 works. 2 works. Make it nice and thin. But that's a good note to, you know, at any point you can make this much, much bigger. If you needed a bigger, think thread. This is kind of similar to what I've used when I've threaded something in a motion graphic and made it look like it was, or lacing. Think lacing. You could lace shoes using this kind of technique you're about to do. You could get hired by a shoe company and do a really cool motion graphic for their promotional material and marketing material that shows it getting laced up real cool. I don't know, just throwing out ideas. This is going to be kind of fun and easy, but okay, so we have our nice little line. Perfect. Next, we're going to open up that layer. So you have to be able to see this layer. So click open. Do you see this word add? And if for some weird reason it wasn't there, make sure you've got your column open with that. It probably is automatically. But remember that we can kind of randomly control click, see columns, and you could try to like fumble through this. I think it's under switches. If you needed it. So we're going to hit add. And under add, we're going to go down to the word trim paths. Now, let's open up the trim paths properties. We've got all kinds of fun things. And you're starting to get used to seeing a lot of this stuff, right? Like the start, the end, you're like, okay, I'm probably going to be animated something like this. This is going to be fun. So let's just play with them for a second so you can see. So he's fully there. Oh, he's hard to see because he's selected. But like notice how if I mess with the start, I can get him to, like you could, oh, I wish you could see it. Here, let's do this. Let me grab my line. Let me beef it up, and that might help us. There we go. Don't change yours, just watch for a second. That you can animate this. Oh gosh, it's so easy, right? And that could be on anything, anything. You could spell out words. You could do the laces, like I said, a needle and thread. You could, you know, have it as sort of a trail behind an airplane that sort of animates. Maybe it's got more of a gradient on it than a flat line color, flat color, I mean. There's so much you can do with this. So see how we can very easily animate this. Cool. All right, let me go back to 2. All right. So that's going to be easy. At 0 seconds on the timeline, we're going to start a keyframe for the end % value. Now, you could do either of these. I will tell you, they both do similar things. It just depends on the direction you're trying to go. So let's pick the one, and actually, I'm going to stray from my own lesson just a little bit. If I want it to come out of the gun that we're eventually going to animate with this, so I want it to grow from this side, which would I use? Maybe not that guy. Probably this guy. Look, perfect. And that's a perfect example of you're not going to know all the answers at first. You're going to have to test some of these things and see how they affect your animation, how you need them to work for you. Make them work for you. Okay, so we're going to go to 0 with these two numbers at 0. And I'm winging this as we go. I'm going to animate the end instead of the start, but they were very similar. So just keep that in mind if you ever needed them. End, I'm going to go to 1 second-ish. And I'm going to make it 100. And at this point also, I probably need to go back to my 2 so I can see. And boom. Oh, we love it. Let's throw on some easy eases because we like that. Let's get in a better habit of utilizing that easy feature. Play. Boom. You can see it really well, the easy ease in this guy, how he's kind of slow, speeds up, and then he slows down right before the end. That's what that means. You can kind of see that if you keep rewatching it. All right, cool. We're so close. All right, next thing. Obviously, it's a little weird that everything is on the screen right off the bat. So how do we address that? Could we go in and add masks and alpha masks so that the text grows like we've learned previously? Sure, but here's another simple way. Let's just do some opacity changes. So I'm going to grab these 2 layers, hit T so I can see their opacities. Here's another way of working backwards, smarter, not harder. I'm going to click because I'm at 100, but you're like, oh, aren't we supposed to be at 0 right here? That's fine. I'm just going to move them down. And now they're 0. So they're going to fade on, and he's going to zoom on. Now, could I adjust him just a little bit so like maybe he doesn't start to come on until maybe closer to here? Yep, real easy. Okay, now let's watch our animation. Boom, done. Okay, so this is all a composition. We're also going to hit save because that's smart. Now we're going to make our new composition, bring the 2 in, and animate them together. So composition, new, 007 logo, and lower third, so we know what we're working with. We like these settings, and 10 is fine. Again, you can always adjust it. We're going to then bring in our lower thirds and our animated logo. Now make sure you're grabbing the right one with this. You can always delete it and bring in the right one because we have a few more compositions that we worked on in this lower thirds or in this 007 in general because of how we needed to set it up. And that happens. This can get wild. You know, and I don't talk enough about using folders because we're doing such simple little lessons, but as you continue on into motion graphics, you may need to use those folders to just keep your stuff organized, your assets organized. It's really easy to do. I mean, you would just set up your folder and drag and drop them in. And I hope that as you're taking this class, you're seeing the value of learning just a few tricks with motion graphics and the program After Effects and what that can do for your portfolio, your employability, and frankly, hopefully your bank accounts, because these are so valuable. You don't have to be animators. In the 12 years I've taught this class, I have heard so many students, well, I don't want to be an animator. That is fine. I also don't want to be an animator. It's never been a dream of mine to go work for Pixar or Disney. But I do really enjoy making money, as I think most of you do. And this is it. If you think that flat Illustrator and Photoshop artwork is going to make you a really nice salary every year, I hate to say it, but it's probably not. And it might, and I'm not saying it can't happen, but having this tool in your tool belt and knowing how to just add some simple keyframes and upsell people on $200, $500, $1,000 for a small motion graphic, or having those bullets on your resume for a job. They may never want you to animate, but they're like, oh, shoot, this person knows a lot more programs than we even need. So obviously they are overachievers. They get it. It shows you can learn new technology because you're going to have to forever. I hope that you're okay with that. It's not like you're going to learn stuff in a AA program, an associate's degree, and that's all you're ever going to need to know to make a living. You're going to, the technology will change a little bit. You're always going to want to learn a little bit. So I hope that you see how being just a really cool graphic designer, adding this little feature to what you can supply an employer or a client, customer, business, even just your own portfolio to show off, is just really, really valuable. Okay, enough of my rant. So we've got this, and then we've got that. I think we already know where this is going, and we do need him to fade on. So what's annoying is I kind of want him to not do any, I want him to fade on over a second. Let's double click into here and fix that. Boom, here I am. So about here is where I really want my stuff to happen. So let's grab these top 3 layers, move them down. No big deal. We're keeping them together, right? Because there's a lot happening with this guy. And then let's just fade him in. T for transparency. Fine. Fine. Boom. Boom. Perfect. Go back to our one that's got them both in it that we've been working on. So now we've got fade on. And you kind of could do that here, but the gun was happening so quickly that I at least needed to move those down. I could have done my transparency in this guy. So he fades on. That comes on all the way on. So let's now open up our properties. We're going to do a scale and position at 100% right here, where we want it to be. You're always kind of working off of a point, whether you're moving forward off of that point, as we're about to do, or moving backwards off of that point. But, okay, so I want him there. Let's go about a second down our timeline, and he needs to then move. I'm holding shift, because if I don't, I can do weird stuff. Don't do that. Let's make him small. Move him over. I personally like to stay more within my square. I know that's not everyone's cup of tea, so just know that that's what I'm doing, but no, you can do it a little different. Now, you would not go within these last 2 boxes because that's your title safe and action safe. So, like, that's really pushing it. Okay, so he's there, and that happened, and that's cool. We're going to add some eases, right? We're getting better about that. Bam, that's subtle. After Effects. You can really kind of see it on the dots. Hold on, let's zoom in. See how these dots look closer together? And those are representing, they used to be called tweens. These are representing kind of that motion. And then see how much further it is here? So it's just kind of taking up bigger pieces here and then slowing down. Like that really gives you a visual of what's happening with those eases. Okay. Next, we grab this guy. Where do we want him? Boom. Boom. And he's probably also going to need to get moved. That's where we want him to fade on. But I need to be able to see him to even know where I'm going. So we're not starting any keyframes. We're just going to move him in place. I'm holding shift and I'm bringing it down, and I'm kind of going to line up my line with his. And actually, I kind of now want to go in and change this typography to be here. And because I haven't done any motion to that word, James, I've only done the transparency, so I didn't mess with the position. So I'm not messing with any keyframes. So that was no big deal. Now let's go back into here. Oh, it's going to be good. All right. Let's move it up just the tiniest bit. So he comes in Let's start from the beginning. Fades in, moves over, cool mask effect, goes down to its final resting place, fades in, a little close. Let's move him over. Maybe not that far. And think typography. I'm always looking at this in terms of typography, just like you would with a poster. If it doesn't look beautiful, the motion isn't going to fix that. So make sure your typography still looks nice. All right, so he moves. And then, that's cool. And done. Very cool. We can trim off our whole composition at this point because we really only need, it looks like, 6 seconds. And let's watch it. And I'll take off my tile safe now. Fades in. Boom. Boom. Bam. I love it. I hope that really inspires you for your own personal logos and lower thirds and just some of the cool little things you can do by just like kind of moving a position, maybe adjusting a transparency and maybe adjusting a scale, like very simple things. Good job.